Hey guys, this is Dan here at Wagglove Auto. Today I guess we're going to talk about maybe some paint protection film. There's a lot of questions out there in regards to paint protection film looks maybe a year or years after an install versus a fresh install. So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit and a few other things about just paint protection film in general.
This was our first full PPF wrap that we did. We had just done some PPF before this, but it was just like partial fronts or full fronts or little parts here and there. So this was actually the first full car wrap that we've done. And it was in the stealth, which gave the gloss paint a matte look. You know, considering that this was 6 years ago, this is about probably 6 months after we actually started doing PPF, we were still learning. There was still a lot to learn. It was very hard for us to do this car. This car just got some crazy angles, like especially on the bumper. And it was definitely difficult. You can tell by just looking close up at it that, you know, there's some edges that aren't wrapped around like we would wrap around now. There's some little misalignments and maybe some edges that are not perfectly straight just because, you know, we weren't as experienced then. But now, being, you know, 6 years later, there's a lot of things that have changed. Our techniques have changed, our tools have changed. We all have gained a lot more of experience, and so it's a big difference.
Okay guys, in general, paint protection film is a polyurethane layer and an adhesive layer. The two combined kind of make the paint protection film up. It's basically plastic and adhesive. Most paint protection films on the market on average are probably 6 to 8 mils thick. We generally install 10 mil thick film. It gives you about 25% more protection than you know, the industry standard. What we're looking at here on this 2015 Z28 Camaro is actually the XPEL Stealth Paint Protection Film, and you'll see that it gives that kind of matte finish versus a gloss finish. This is a panel that's been damaged. We're actually redoing it. So this is the original color, is a gloss black, and with the Stealth Paint Protection Film on it, you can see how it's just kind of give it that matte finish, which a lot of people kind of like. This is actually the first one that we've done in Stealth when we opened the business up about 6-7 years ago. So this is our very first Stealth Paint Protection Film install. It's back today, you know, like I said, 6 or 7 years later, he had a little damage that he incurred, and we're going to redo this fender for him once he gets it repaired and get the Stealth back on there and get it looking good again.
Well, you know, back then, you know, our shop was actually very slow. There was only like, you know, 2, maybe 3 cars in the shop at a time. I only had so 6 years ago when we did this car, we only had 3 people. It was me and my dad, then Kristen, which is my business partner. It was just us 3. Now, you know, to this day, you know, we have 16 people. We've got typically 10 to 15 cars in the shop at one time. So you can definitely say that with our quality that grew with us, our business grew as well. You can definitely say that our quality does stand out.
Really, PPF is for anyone who's just interested in keeping their paint looking good over time. It's really just for anyone who's looking to keep their paint chip-free and keep it clean, hold the value better.
Some things you can expect to see on like a 6-year-old PPF job is you're probably going to see some damage in like the high impact zones from rock chips or maybe some other abrasions throughout the years. Things that normally would have messed up your paint but is actually on the paint protection film. You may see some lifting around the edges, maybe some bubbling or some scuffs, or, you know, you'll just see the overall abuse that the car took over the last 6 years. That's some of the things that you would see 6 years into it. Now, if, you know, you have a very experienced installer putting on paint protection film on your vehicle, you're not going to see lifting or bubbling and stuff like that down the road because they knew how to properly install it at that time. Luckily, this car being 6 years old and our first wrap, we actually did not have to replace anything on this car. Everything actually is laid down pretty smooth. We just have some, you know, some awkward edges here and there. Other than that, it's no big complaints from the customer. He loves the car. He's actually back because this front passenger fender got damaged, and so we were able to pull the paint protection film off. 6 years later, didn't peel any paint off or anything like that, and then we were able to get it replaced.
I mean, some of the things we can look at as we go around, maybe how the kits seam together and around the edges, just how close everything is around the edges. I've noticed on a few of these panels, honestly, it would be nice if the film was a little bit closer to the edges. There are some panels that maybe the edges are not wrapped around that today we would be wrapping around. I mean, we've learned a lot in the last 6, 7 years. Definitely our quality of install has gotten much better. Edges that you could wrap around, for example, like this fender right here. A lot of the kits will come to the edges, so it'll come right up here to the edge and just set right off of the edge. What we like to do is extend that edge and then actually wrap it around and wrap it in there. That's going to get it good and sealed down, and you're going to have a lot less issues with the edges lifting over time, just out and about, or when you go to wash it with a power washer and whatnot. It's going to help ensure that you don't have any lifting around that edge. So these days, if an edge can be wrapped around, then that's what we like to do. Other edges, then we'll just try to get the film as close as you can to the edge. Specifically on a car like this, where you're going from gloss to that matte, you want that gap in the panels here to be minimal, because you don't really want to see, that gloss there around the edge. You want to get that covered up the best that you can, get it looking good.
So the type of people that should get PPF, I'm going to say, is pretty much anybody that gets either a new car or a relatively new car, or maybe even like an older car that's been really, really well taken care of, where the paint is still in great condition. Because if you have paint that's in great condition, then you should protect that. If it's already all beat up and chipped up and stuff like that, it's kind of redundant at that point unless you were to have it all repaired. But it is going to be for everybody. We've done full body wraps on Honda Civics, Volkswagen Jettas, which are $20,000 to $30,000 cars. It's not just for people who have high-end expensive vehicles.
So you can see down here on the door, we've got a little bit of damage right here that he's incurred already. Let's open it up here. Right here on the edge, it looks like he's already kind of rubbed up against something right there. And that kind of gives it, especially the stealth, it kind of gets it turning a little white looking there when it's been smacked around or hit with something. For the most part, that's just aesthetics in the film itself, and paint underneath is fine. It's just the film that's damaged. What we'll get a lot is over time, usually on the front end of your vehicle, mostly the bumper, it gets beat up and whatnot. When it gets not looking so hot, customer may come back and just have us, replace the film after a couple years, get it looking good again. Small debris and things like that aren't going to harm the film, aesthetically speaking. You're not really going to notice it, but when you get the bigger chips and things like that, they hit it, they'll leave little marks. That's understandable, and that's what's going to happen.
We use XPEL mainly because XPEL's been in the game for the longest time. They were actually partnered with 3M back in the 90s. They were the developers of paint protection film with 3M. They did a lot of like military equipment and stuff like that back then. And then XPEL split off, became their own company, started doing their own thing. I seen that when I was doing research, when I was first starting to learn about paint protection film and what brand I wanted to add to my company. XPEL had been around the longest. They had the first self-healing paint protection film on the market. No other film in the world had that at the time. It was XPEL that had the self-healing. Now almost any brand out there does have self-healing abilities. XPEL's is still one of the best on the market as far as, how far a scratch can cut into the film before it does self-heal. It is hydrophobic. They got some great adhesive on there. It's overall a good film. It doesn't yellow, and it's got a great warranty.
Out in heat, it just kind of merges back together, self-healing, if you will, and all those light scratches and swirl marks and things just disappear. That'll happen naturally out in the heat. Like I said, when it's nice and hot out, it'll happen almost instantly. If you wanted to speed it up, if it's in the cooler months and whatnot, you could always put a heat gun or hair dryer or something like that on it, get those self-healing properties activated. So that's definitely one of the good features, or one of the better features about the paint protection film these days.
Well, if you are looking to do paint protection film yourself, maybe you don't want to use a knife on your car or try cutting the film yourself, because that can be difficult and you can damage your vehicle that way. If you want pre-cut templates, you can give us a call. If you call our front office and just tell them, hey, I want to try paint protection film myself, I would like to have the templates cut out for me, could you do that? And we'll say yes. Prices are based on the car and the panel, so we'll be able to work up a quote for you based on the square footage and the time it takes for us to cut it out. I would highly suggest that for somebody who is wanting to venture out and do this on their own, so they don't mess up their paint with a knife.
Once again, it's just the attention to detail. Like I said, we just go on that extra mile to ensure that we wrap everything that we can around the edges. Now, that's probably the biggest thing. A lot of the kits and stuff, they give you the option to extend edges, and a lot of people just will run it to the edge versus carrying it around the edges. And that's probably one of the biggest things is ensuring you got a nice clean install, contaminant-free install. Just pay really close attention to all those things. We want it to look just as clean as we can get it to look for the customer. So.
All right, guys, again, my name is Myron Kirkpatrick. I'm the owner of White Glove Auto, and this is what you can expect whenever you have PPF for 6 years.